All right. Good evening. We will now start the council committee meeting. I'll do a roll call at this time. Steele Reynolds, Ward 1 is absent. Sierra Wooded, Ward 1 is absent. Councilmember Person?
Present.
Councilmember Murphy?
Present.
Councilmember Knappen is also absent. Councilmember Rainey?
Present.
And Councilmember Aldridge?
Present.
Next, I'd like to explain our proceedings for public input. In an effort to enhance residents' ability to present information to the governing body, anyone interested in addressing the governing body is strongly encouraged to register to speak by noon on the day of the meeting, but it is not required. Information has been posted online about how to sign up. By policy, comments are limited to 5 minutes, and no person may speak more than once to any one agenda item. Only comments related to city business are permitted. Disruptive acts are not permitted as per policy statement number 7 and will not be tolerated. After you're finished speaking, please sign the form on the podium to ensure we have an accurate record of your name and address. Additionally, comments can be submitted to the entire governing body via email at governingbody@cityofshawnee.org. There is only one item on tonight's agenda. Item number 1 is discussion of the Hickok-Zara TIF district. City Manager Paul Kramer will kick off the discussion.
Thank you, Councilmember Birchfield. What we wanted to do tonight is have a discussion about the current status, planning, transportation, and finances of the Hickok-Zara Conservation TIF District. It is a unique feature in the city of Shawnee, designed to bring development to this 2.5 square mile, 1,648 acre area that has a lot of topographic challenges and has faced development hurdles for many, many years. So what you're seeing on the screen is the outline of the district created in late 2022. And so tonight, Doug Allman, our Community Development Director, will talk a little bit about development to date and things that we have planned. Kevin Manning, our Public Works Director, will talk briefly about transportation, the next steps of transportation infrastructure in the district. And then I'll hit a little bit on the finances that the financial engine that will make that development and those infrastructure improvements happen. So just before we get into Doug's portion, I wanted to point out that there are homes, there is development, there are people, there are utilities, there is all kinds of city infrastructure within the district existing, 10.6 lane miles of improved streets, 11.5 miles of ditch section roads, about 204 homes that are still on septic in that area, 2,200 feet of stormwater pipe in poor condition, and 7,600 feet of stormwater pipe in unknown condition. Quite a few service requests in that period leading up to the district. I bring that up because a comment, I've had the opportunity to speak with a lot of homeowners. I spoke at the Brittany Ridge subdivision homeowners HOA meeting. There's a lot of questions about, okay, we're in the district, will we see improvements to our roadways? Will we see improvements to infrastructure? And so that's part of the calculus we'll talk about in the finances, but we are very cognizant of some substandard infrastructure in the area and certainly want to make some improvements as we move through and as the district develops and more funds become available. So with that, I will turn it over to Doug Allman to start talking a little bit about where we are and what could potentially happen in that district.
Good evening, everyone again. Just a little background on this. So the Achieve Shawnee plan that we just talked about earlier this evening, when it was originally approved, this entire area had just become sewered. And I'm talking about not the entire 1,500 acre piece, but the vacant land that abutted Lenexa. And so when that planning exercise went through, that entire area was shown as mixed use. And I think there was a confusion on what that meant. And I think there was some misunderstanding even maybe at the council level of what that meant in terms of what would eventually go here. And so as a staff, with that last review that we did, in-house, we had a person in our department was able to land plan kind of a scenario based on existing ownerships, based on existing topography, potential access, and those sort of things. And that's the map that you see up there right now. And based on that, the first project plan in the area that came through was for the construction of 80th Street. That's at the far south end. The areas in white where that lower blue line goes through is what's called Bristol Highlands. And it's a developing subdivision today, and 80th Street was put in by the city. I think it was designed actually by the developer, and then there was a developer agreement for reimbursement and all kinds of things. So that was what was the first economic engine to be done. So just in terms of units and what you're seeing there, they're building homes, as I said now. Ultimately, I've got the number. The area that's zoned and preliminary platted, if the plan stays true to what you see on the screen, will be 235 single family lots on about 138 acres of the site. And so through this land planning effort, we were able to, as a staff, kind of understand that vast majority of this undeveloped TIF area is going to be single family. To do other type of development would be very difficult because of the terrain. If you go out there today and you drive 75th and Monticello, the big roundabout, and look to the east, you can see that it dives off basically into a valley, and that's the green area that you see on that map that will be preserved as stream corridor buffer. And so our land planner at the time that put this together was able to come up with additional configurations of single family lots. As I said, large, vast majority of that area, north of 75th Street, south of 75th Street, and then adjacent to what would be new woodland that would someday connect into Carson. Carson was built to a collector standard back in the late 90s, early 2000s when Brittany Ridge was developed. And so there's always been the idea that Martindale would be relieved, Old Woodland would be relieved, and that a new collector street would go through this property someday. And so the TIF itself has kind of sparked development that is starting to get the TIF engine running. Other areas that have been planned, if you see the brown, that actually remained mixed use as you get closer to Monticello, which is equipped to handle the traffic that would be generated by mixed use. There could be anything from attached housing, townhomes, and service retail to sit-down type restaurants even. Those sort of things could go in that mixed use area. And then 75th on over to K7, the idea is that that interchange is in the TIF district. And if it were to ever be improved, 75th would be improved as well. And that would free up around the roundabout the area for some additional mixed residential type uses on Monticello, and even some community commercial there around the roundabout area. Again, all of these are going to be very creative in dealing with the terrain because it's going to be a lot of retaining walls probably and a lot of fill. Basically, that's what I was going to present to you in terms of future use. If you have questions about the zoning or anything that you think may be coming forward, obviously we are here to answer those questions. My guess is that the majority of this area, similar to 80th Street, Bristol Highlands, the rest of those lots were designed under a PSF setting, which is our planned single family zoning district. And that is the same zoning that is currently being developed by Bristol Highlands down off of 80th Street. But any questions of me about potential development or anything like that? There are no pending, except for the preliminary and final plats that you've seen for Bristol Highlands. There aren't any pending applications for rezoning or anything like that in the vacant area. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Councilmember Murphy.
What's the eastern boundary
Of the TIF
of
area?
the TIF area?
I don't know the description of it. It's east of the railroad tracks. Essentially, if you are familiar with Old Martindale, it's the area east of there. And the idea is that there's the hope that someday, and it showed on that map, of a trail connection going up through the stream corridor. And then strategically, that red line that you see, there would be a bridge, a pedestrian multi-use bridge that would be TIF eligible, that could be constructed to span that area of the creek and floodplain, with the thought that then someone living in the new developed area could hike or bike into Shawnee Mission Park. So I don't know the exact eastern edge, but it is somewhere in that floodplain area.
Okay.
Based on the legal description that was originally done. I think that's right, Paul. Yep.
Are there any other questions from the council? Thank you, Doug.
So the next discussion before we get to finances is I've asked Kevin to go over some of the infrastructure challenges. A question we get a lot is when is Carson going to go in? When is Woodland going to be improved? When will the 75th Street extension be built? And so there are quite a few kind of chicken and the egg type scenarios here. So I asked Kevin to kind of give an overview of what it may look like and what are some of the main infrastructure improvements that we'll contemplate over the next probably 10 years.
All right, so as has already been discussed a little bit, the east to west dotted blue line on the south side of this area, that's 80th Street, that's already been constructed. After that project, there's kind of what I'll call a big three that are still kind of remaining that we've looked at. One of them is Woodland, which is the north-south dotted line. And then there's also the extension of 75th Street. You can see the roundabout at Monticello and 75th and basically connecting that over to the east of Woodland. And then finally, we have the interchange at K7 and 75th Street. So those are kind of the three main projects we've identified right now that are kind of our priorities. Now, when each one of those kind of gets built is still up in the air. As I think everyone here knows, we made a strong push at KDOT's last local consult to get some funding for the K7 and 75th Street interchange. So we're still waiting to hear the results of that local consult. Hopefully in the next, March, April, we're going to hear if we made that. It's a very competitive process. So it's, not a guarantee or by any means, but, we're hopeful that we can get some funding for that. If that was the case, that goes into KDOT's pipeline, then that's going to become a higher priority for us. And from the houses that are already out there and starting to generate income, that would there may be a desire to move some of that towards that project if we get that project built earlier. If for some reason we didn't receive funding for that, we've also talked about the Woodland project, our next round of STBG applications, which is coming up. The first round of those is coming up in April of this year with the second round in June. And so we talked about that as a candidate project. And so depending on how all those kind of pieces fall into place, Woodland could be another good example of something maybe we want to pursue if we apply for federal funds on that and receive funds for 29 and 30. But once again, we won't really know that for sure until probably closer to the end of this year. And then finally, we have, the 75th Street extension. We have had meetings with developers where, they've talked about some different options out there. And if there was a scenario where a developer needed 75th Street to be built in order to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit, I think that's something the city would explore as well, because Paul's going to talk more about this, but we're really trying to get the engine started. It's like a snowball rolling down the hill. The more houses that we can get built out there, the more income that's going to be generated and we can do more work out there. So we've got a little snowball rolling right now and we're trying to make that bigger and push it down the hill. So really what the future looks like out there is yet to be determined. And a lot of it just depends on, external funding, how that incentivizes the city to prioritize our projects, and then also what developers may want to do out here and how that's going to incentivize us to prioritize, one of these over the other.
Thank you, Kevin. Any questions?
So the final two things I'll touch on are one, unrelated to the finance, but kind of related to the planning is Bristol Highlands has been an impressive engine out there. The home prices are to the level where the city capturing that increment has started to grow funds. But in the future, I want the council to be mindful that you have some ability to affect development based on the incentives required. And so as you start looking at some of the commercial areas around 75th and Monticello, some of the development more toward the northern part of the development, be mindful that these will all require development agreements, and development agreements can be a win-win scenario where the city often can get some of the elements that it looks for in development and in a way that a developer will also do well. So as we continue to move through these and we get more land inquiries, most of the property is for sale, whether it's on the books or off the books. The current property owners have spoken to developers, but as those become a little bit more real over the next couple of years, the city should keep in mind that we want to be able to direct that investment, and we can do that through the fact that it will require a lot of public support on the infrastructure. So on the financial piece, I know this is going to be small to look at, but what I really want to show is at the top, Bristol Highlands right now is really the engine in that. And you can see when I think it was Kevin who used the term snowball. In 2024, Bristol Highlands generated, you see the 55,000 and the 27,000, well under $100,000. You fast forward to 2027, you see that the 160 units start coming on board. 2032, you're at 1.6 million. The remaining district putting a little bit more in there, and that is without any other development in the district. So as that development comes, that engine starts going, and even out in 2023, where Bristol Highlands as a whole is well over $2 million. So right now, the only expenditures out of that fund are the developer reimbursement for 2024, which is a small amount, and then the debt payments for 80th Street. And so you'll see that's 488,000 all the way out through 2034. So pretty soon, the if not now or this year and going into 25 and then going into 26, it does generate revenue in excess of expenditures. But I did throw 5 potential projects in there that really, depending on when they happen, can change that narrative. And so the K7 and 75th Street exchange, the city has committed up to $15 million of local funds to $43 million interchange. That pledge helps our scoring and helps that bridge get done faster. That doesn't all have to come from this. We can look for grants. We can look for federal grants. We can look for different ways to fund that. But until we find those, we do have starting in 2030 an annual debt payment of $1.2 million if we have to shoulder the entire $15 million. Connect Shawnee, that's actually the trail. So it's a very expensive trail right now. It's just a line on a map, but that would be the general outline of the map. We think it's a good use of that property, keep the green space, the connectivity to county trails. It would be an expensive project. And as development happens, we'll start seeing where we prioritize that trail. Okay, so there is one that's a little bit different. So the Midland Road, that's the Overlook at Midland, which is an apartment complex that was approved support for by the previous council that has been awarded state tax credits. And that is up on Shawnee Mission Parkway, just west of Woodland, just west of the Quick Trip there. Along Midland. So although it's not discussed in this, it's actually within the district. And as part of that project, as it happens, we're likely looking to make some improvements to Midland Drive through there. It's basically a narrow, open ditch kind of county road. And so we would probably look at with the development, if that development does occur, making some investment of TIF funds at that location. So then the other two are the 75th Street Bridge, which Kevin talked about, and the Woodland Road extension. Again, we're going to pursue STBG funding. We'll pursue other state grant funding. But short of that, we'll have to budget it out of the TIF district. So you can see if that happens, if these 5 happen, you're upside down pretty quickly. So when we talk about servicing existing residences and making local road improvements, we can certainly do that also through the mill and overlay program. But to make more substantive changes in some of those roadway networks, it is competing against 4 or 5 large projects. I do think we need to continue to be mindful that they are in the district and make some improvements out there. I've had discussions about street lighting with a couple of residents, so we can address that in a different way. But just wanted to sort of give you a black and white view of what some of the challenges are with future infrastructure as we continue growth in that area. Any questions you have on infrastructure, priorities, zoning, or anything like that?
Just one question. The Overlook at Midland, was that the seniors apartments that we approved a year or so ago?
No, this went through the state LIHTC program, Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. And so that's in process right now. They hope to have their funding secured in October, but that was resolution support was issued a couple years ago by the council, and then it went through the state process and was awarded those tax credits late last year. That's 168 units if it comes to fruition.
Any other questions? I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said about the Midland Road as well. If that project does not move forward, does this project fall off of our priority list then, or is this something that is not contingent upon that development?
Yeah, I think staff would advocate to only make those changes if a development in the area drove those changes. It'd be a significant cost without an accompanying revenue stream. It would, in a way, the overlook at Midland would help fund its own investments since it's in the district, because there's really not much value to the land right now. So an improvement like that, a large multifamily housing complex, would generate quite a bit of TIF increment.
Got it. And then these projections, again, is just based on the known 160 units of Bristol Highlands. If additional development comes in, obviously these numbers change as well.
Yeah, the hope and the plan is that they will change dramatically as we
Okay.
continue to build more in the district.
Okay. I greatly appreciate the way that you're framing this as helping to address the needs of those who are currently in the district and understanding those improvements that we can be making now compared to these larger projects. So I will thank you for kind of giving us this chart and helping us understand the needs for the area and what our potential revenues are. Last call. Any other questions? Councilmember Aldridge.
Can you go back to the map? Where is Bristol Highlands? Is it just north of 80th?
It's on both sides of 80th.
Okay, so what part? So, sorry, can you show me what is not Bristol then? Is it everything in yellow
Yeah, so
or light yellow?
I'll let Doug confirm. I believe everything in white is Bristol.
That's what I was thinking. So then the yellow would be development that's not in action yet.
That is correct. Everything that's in white has been preliminary platted.
Okay, so that's included in all those planned numbers.
That would be
on the chart.
part of, I believe, the known knowledge of the engine, the first
Yep.
project area for 80th Street. Everything else is conceptual, and it was laid in by our staff based on, as I said, ownership, topography, and access.
How many units you don't have, you could tell me later, but if you know off the top of your head, how many units are included in that that aren't part of the engine yet?
I don't
Okay.
have that.
That's okay. You can.
Because the 80th Street development I could tell you how many permits are out there, but I don't know how many of those are occupied, but I could certainly find that out for you. Be glad to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions?
We do have to adjourn. We have lost our quorum.
Understood. All right. So do I need a motion to adjourn or do we just adjourn? Okay. I'll accept a motion.
Move to
Councilmember
adjourn.
Aldridge.
Seconded.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.
We're done anyway.